name's Ethan. Welcome back to the Cascadian. Let's get started. Today I want to talk about Jason Kenney and Alberta a little bit. I'm not just going to be breaking the news because that's shit. And it doesn't really add anything. You could just go read the Globe and Mail article about what's going on and you'll know everything I can give you. So I want to do more of an analysis. And what I want to do is hopefully make a point of showing the true similarities between the Liberals and the Conservatives, and the class solidarity that they share, because that is something that, is often overlooked by the establishment media because they're part of the same class solidarity. Talking about independent voices and labor rights, like what's going on with the NDP, it's really important to recognize kind of what is going on with these establishment parties and what tools do they use to swing your vote. Because if you can identify that, then you can have greater control and freedom over yourself. You can know what to think yourself. You don't necessarily need to be told, like is the case the Liberals and Conservatives would like. Jason Kenney's Mackinnon report takes a lesson from Justin Trudeau on manufacturing consent. So let's talk a little bit about the report. It's reported by the Globe that Jason Kenney did not allow the report to suggest raising taxes to deal with the deficit, but the report had to find a solution to the deficit. What Jason Kenney is doing with this report and with the Alberta legislature and the tax cuts he's going to try to do is a very common tool used by the establishment, by the Conservatives and the Liberals. Both use this super well. And what I'm going to do today, hopefully, is show you the kind of similarities between Jason Kenney's report and how he's trying to manipulate and manufacture a public discussion that is directly to the benefit of his pocket. It is exactly the same thing Justin Trudeau did with electoral reform in 2015. The report finds about a $10 billion deficit. Jason Kenney did not allow the report to have any recommendation of raising taxes because he represents the wealthiest people in Alberta. It's quite clear, it's quite obvious to anyone that's looking with their eyes open. It would be political suicide for Kenney to even suggest raising taxes on his payers, on his funders, on his friends. Something that's not brought up in the report is that Alberta has the lowest tax rates among all the provinces. And even if they were to match what BC is doing, which I believe is the second lowest, they would eliminate their deficit. So just by matching the next level up of taxes, they can deal with this deficit. What I'm saying is it's not a problem. This is a manufactured problem that Jason Kenney is doing because he's prevented already the option, the legitimate and real option that anyone with a rational mind would take, which is just raising taxes a little bit on the rich. You have some of the most wealthy people in Canada living in Alberta because of the oil there and the old oil families that still live there, and he doesn't want to do that. So what he's doing is he's manufacturing a problem. And this is exactly the same thing that Justin Trudeau did with electoral reform. So let's go a little bit through there. Justin Trudeau ran on the clear message that 2015 would be the last election to use a first-past-the-post system. Clearly, we're still going to do that in 2019. So Trudeau manufactured a debate around electoral reform in 2015. It's taking a lot longer of a form than what we're seeing today with Kenney, but it's the same function, it's the same process, it's the same tool, and it's done for the same reason, to manipulate the voters. So Trudeau said in 2015 that 2015 would be the last election run under first-past-the-post. Clearly that's not the case because he lied. And so how did he do this? This is really important to recognize. Instead of following through, he waited till halfway through his term and then further manufactured a completely biased public forum to give the public opinion. And this public opinion would basically determine what electoral system we would use. And it was horribly inclined against proportional representation. The Trudeau part of the Liberals probably thought, proportional representation won't be necessary. We will be able to change quote unquote change the voting system to something else that's not first past the post, but is similar enough to first past the post that it won't threaten our own existence as a party like proportional representation does. And that's why they can't do it. So instead of just coming up front and saying, I'm not going to support this, even though we could have known beforehand, like I knew he was never going to do that. Instead of doing all of that, he lied to your face repeatedly. And he does the same thing. Trudeau does the same thing with oil and climate change. He says, we need to have a stronger stance and we need to have more energy and all these like dog whistles for change that don't do anything, that have no substantial change attached to them. And then he goes out and buys a pipeline, right? So it's a very Obama-like way of doing things where you say you're left and then step right. And Kenney is doing the same thing. So Kenney messaged in his electoral campaign, I'm not going to cut healthcare, I'm not going to cut education, but this report he's manufactured is basically the only solution if you're not going to raise taxes is to cut those services. Cut entire universities. Imagine the University of Alberta just not going anymore. It's crazy. So what we're trying to compare here is Kenney and Trudeau did the same thing. I'm going to link below a Tyee article that was ran today. It honestly is one of the best pieces of media I've read in a long time. So this is a quote I'd like to share from it that I think will express my point here. Liberals create these public spectacles of their bold progressiveness while they quietly assure the corporate elite that their interests will be safeguarded. This is exactly what Kenney has done in Alberta, but without the progressiveness, right? So he just said, we're going to go back to economic austerity, we're going to get the economy back on track, we're going to go back into oil and support it like that. When he's not sincere about any of this. He just wants to get elected so that he can help his oil billionaire friends. And that's that. Like, that's the simplicity of what we're talking about. There's no need for any conspiracy theory. Like, they pay his campaign, they pay his funding, and they pay the tax bills that he needs to run the government. And they lobby, and like it's not some closed door thing. It's right in front of our faces. All we need to do is follow the money. Kenney and Trudeau follow the money because they're part of the establishment. Neither of these parties are truly opposed to each other, even though they say they are. They're much more similar than they are different. And not recognizing that is atrocious. Basically what we're watching happen repeatedly is the function that I'm talking about. So this is what the establishment have done for centuries now. You promise to do something, but because I have then manufactured a problem around my promise, I will now break the promise that I've given you. And it seems like there's a real reason. Like Trudeau had a real reason to not do electoral reform because the results from the public were inconclusive, even though he manufactured that those results were destined to be inconclusive. Kenney, likewise, has a reason now to go back on his promise of cutting social funding because he's manufactured a reason to do so. And particularly because he didn't allow that report to have a recommendation of raising taxes. Trudeau did not allow that report to conclude that proportional representation was a legitimate way to elect a government. He would not allow that. He manufactured that. And so did Kenney with his report on the Albertan economy. And so what these two people are practicing here is class solidarity. The billionaires care much more about the other billionaires than the right wing cares about me. And for example, I would like to say that I do care about the right wing more. It's particularly the working class is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of far right working class that is falling to the lies of conservatism and are viewing this as, Trudeau is so bad and it's so obvious that he's a liar and he's part of this corporate media elite that they don't believe the NDP can be the solution, even though they're the best shot we have, right? Like we know that it's not going to work with conservatism. We know that they're going to lie. We're looking at what Kenney's doing. We're looking at what Ford is doing. It's all bullshit. They're lying to their electorate. This is exactly what they're going to do, okay? I'm going to read it one more time, what I wrote down. Promise to do something, but because I have manufactured a problem around my promise, I'm no longer going to hold that promise. And it has a reason, because I've manufactured the reason against it. That's exactly the plan for federal conservatism in 2019. It's exactly the plan. And you know what? Also, that's exactly the plan for liberalism in 2019. And if we want to overcome this, we're going to need to practice class solidarity with each other. And, you know, as much as people can whine and squeal about Jagmeet not being the ideal candidate because he's not white, they can also shut the hell up, because he's a great candidate. The more if I want to go a little bit into the NDP now, I was really annoyed when he got the nomination, because I didn't have faith in Canadians, especially in Quebecers, that they would get past his nationality. I'm changing my mind on that now. Not really because of Canadians, but because of Jagmeet. The message of love and courage is one I would give to my children, to my voters, or to my family. And I would probably say empathy and reason would be my kind of version of love and courage, but we're not far off at all. And Jagmeet is genuine. He worked for the establishment. He was a corporate lawyer, and he's turned his back on this. This is not who he is, and the time for back and forth politics is over. We need an insurrection of labor to take hold of the economy and the democratic machine that we have before we allow the establishment to stagnate our economy to such an extreme end that a fascist can truly take power and truly give a twisted worldview and a mystic past to convince the white working class of Canada that the problem is the brown people, the problem is hippies and SJWs, and the problem is green energy and taxes, and not the establishment or the billionaire class or just all the rest of the real problems that we have. It's none of that shit. It's all the problems that you're already biased to think. And that's how it's done. So the only way that we can prevent this is to overcome what we think of both establishment figures here, and to strive for something new with love and with courage. Thank you. Talk to you soon.